are having our, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Today is September 28th, 2021. We are having our special meeting today. The time is now 6:08. Let's call this meeting to an order. Chris, will you call the roll?
Councilman Noah?
Here.
Councilman Griffin? Councilman Griffin? I think she just froze. I'll hop back. Councilman Burrow, absent. Councilman Robinette?
Here.
Mayor Jones? Councilman Lipka?
Here.
Councilman Nelson?
Here.
Then Councilman Griffin?
Here.
Perfect. We have 5 present, 2 absent.
All right, thank you. Please note. All right, we're gonna move on to
Is everybody else?
Mr. Osterberg. Can you hear me?
You're just coming back in, Councilman Griffin. You were frozen for a couple of seconds there.
Can you all hear me now?
Yes.
Good.
All right, Mr. Osterberg, would you mind telling us about the firms?
Yeah, not at all. So good evening, everybody, City Council. I'm before you today. Unfortunately, Elliot is running late, but I'm happy to fill in for introducing the firms. The kind of this process started prior to my arrival here. We are today bringing before you 2 firms who submitted, responded to our RFP process for revising and updating our zoning code and sign code in our codes. Today, so kind of going back historically, staff released the RFP, staff did their initial review. There was a second review done at Planning Commission, but we had heard from members of council that they wanted to have an opportunity to give input about the 2 firms. So today we have Housel Levine and then H3 Studios here to give presentations before you. Unfortunately, I'm not sure who is going to go first. If the firms could speak up and let me know, I'm happy to give the floor to you.
Yeah, this is John Housel. Elliot said that we should be prepared to go on at 6 o'clock.
Okay, yeah, so you will be going first. So, Mr. Housel, are you able to share your screen?
Yeah, let's give that a shot.
Okay.
We'll try.
Okay, so I'm going to make you the host, so it'll give you the ability to share your screen. Just make sure I reclaim host before you log out of the meeting, okay?
Okay, sounds good. All right, so we'll try this. All right, are you guys seeing the entire presentation?
No, just the gallery.
All right, what are you saying now?
It's the same screen.
Same.
Still just seeing the gallery?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, we'll try this one more time.
There we go.
Okay. So what are you seeing at this point? Let's try that.
We can see it now.
Presentation.
Yeah, so now we're seeing the full screen.
The full screen presentation?
Oh, the
Okay,
presentation.
good. So we'll run with that then. So first of all, thanks for having us here this evening. I know this process has been going on for a while. It sort of started back at the beginning of summer. Now we're through summer and well into fall. So again, thanks for taking the time this evening to give us a chance to present. Elias So try to keep it to 15 or 20 minutes for presentation, then leave the remainder of the time, 15 minutes or so for Q&A. So we're going to go through a lot of slides fairly quickly, and then I'll turn it back over to you for City Council to ask any questions. So with that, I'm just going to jump right in. Again, this is Halcyon Levine Associates. My name is John Halcyon, principal and founder of Halcyon Levine. And again, we're thrilled to be here this evening. The project team internally that we have assigned to this project, we've got about 20 employees in our office, and this is the core group of 6 people that are going to be assigned and working primarily on the Ferguson zoning ordinance, sign, and subdivision code. It's myself, Jackie Wells, who's also on the call. Jackie, if you want to say hello.
Good evening, everybody.
Jackie will actually be the project manager. I'll be the project principal. Jackie and I can both chime in for Q&A. I'll be going through the presentation since it's a lot to go very quickly. And then there's the remainder of our folks internally that are going to be the core of this project team. Who is on the call right now is myself, and again, Jackie Wells will be serving as the project manager. Going to go through a few slides here real quick about our firm. I know you've got our proposal. Halcyon Levine works all over the United States. We're stationed in Chicago as our primary office. We do a lot of work in the Midwest. Most of our work is in the Midwest. We've done a lot of work in Missouri and in the St. Louis area. It's one of our core areas of practice. And one of the advantages of working both within the region and working nationally is we can bring to bear best practices from around the country on zoning assignments that we are actually doing. So to us, it's not theory or academic or something we read. We can tell you exactly who is doing what around the country that's really sort of cutting edge in terms of providing zoning, sign, and subdivision codes that are delivering a community's comprehensive plan and your aspirations. We've won several national awards from the APA and from ESRI, as well as several awards from the APA at chapter levels or state levels, including the state of Missouri. So this part of the country is no stranger to us. It is our front yard, our back door, and we know this area extremely well. We've worked all over the country. I won't go into all of this, but this gives you just some of the places where we've done zoning ordinances where we can actually bring to bear for local consideration in Ferguson the very best of what is being done across the country. And again, not that we're reading about it, we're the ones doing it with these communities. Over the last few years, we've done more than 60 zoning assignments, 130 comprehensive plan assignments, and about 25 instances where we've actually combined the comprehensive planning and the zoning, or done the zoning right on the heels of a comprehensive plan, and you have just recently redone your comprehensive plan. So again, we're nationally recognized and regionally recognized as being experts in the field of zoning, having produced several publications and are being featured at national and state conferences across the country. Real quick, a project understanding. Our Ferguson 2040 is a remarkable comprehensive plan, and a lot of community investment and time and ideas and thought and intention went into the development of that plan. The key part of the zoning ordinance at this point is to give you the tools you need to begin to implement that our Ferguson 2040 comprehensive plan. And we're going to do that through a robust process, a really unique and engaging engagement and community outreach program to make sure we engage the diversity of the Ferguson community, from residents to business owners, from not-for-profits, and everything in between. Our zoning experience, I'll highlight very quickly. I'll highlight some of the stuff we did for Flint, Michigan, which won several awards, including the master plan, the comprehensive plan we did for Flint. We really work with local institutions to begin to brand the campaign as to what we're doing, to drive up interest and education and excitement about the zoning ordinance. Zoning might not be thought of initially as an exciting thing, but it's where the rubber meets the road. It's where things actually can begin to change, and the our Ferguson comprehensive plan can actually begin to be realized. We begin to do this by identifying local groups and institutions and individuals that can help us get the word out, to drive people to the outreach campaigns, to put stuff out on social media, and to come to the events that we're going to be hosting throughout the process. So in Flint, we did a real detailed dive into the different land use by place types, like what you did for your comprehensive plan, came up with the land use plan, and then moved right into the zoning by defining things like what are green neighborhoods going forward? What's a traditional neighborhood? What do these things begin to look like? In Michigan, we're required to do zoning plan as part of the comprehensive plan, but we frame out how you translate a comprehensive plan like you've got into zoning action. And that's what we did here in Flint. You'll see this, we'll do the same thing for you in Ferguson. This is actually pages from an informational booklet we produced for residents, walking them through the zoning recommendations and how it would begin to improve their downtown, their corridors, their neighborhoods. Very easy to use, very intuitive, highly graphic, very illustrative. It made zoning very consumable for residents and business owners. Our approach is to make sure the zoning aligns with planning. We organize things in a very intuitive and visually compelling nature. We try to write in plain English so it's easy to use and understand. And we use a lot of graphics. We live in a visual age. Things live and breathe on the internet. People don't have the time to wade through a 200-page Word document. So these are some examples of what our zoning ordinances actually look like. This is taken right from zoning ordinances we've done, whether it's dimensional standards for residential construction, and then putting those things into the codified pages of the ordinance, whether we're talking about things like specific use standards, solar applications, where you can keep chicken coops or beehives in your backyard, what drive-through standards have to be for banks or pharmacies or dry cleaners. We put these sort of visual aids directly into the online and physical zoning ordinances that we produce. Things from parking lots and driveways for commercial properties or residential properties, all the way down to things such as landscaping and screening, which is so crucial to a fully built out community like Ferguson, where you have residential up against industrial or residential up against commercial corridors. How are these perimeter areas handled? These are all things we put in specific, highly illustrative, user-friendly codes in our ordinances. Here's an example of screening, whether it's a drive-through screening or HVAC components. And then we bring the same notion all the way down to sign codes. Sign codes have to be federally, meet the federal regulations. Signs are tricky. We've all been through commercial areas that look horrible. We've all been through commercial areas that look really nice. Signage is a big part of that, and we have to meet the federal requirements now for this. All the way down to procedures. How do you move through the process of a zoning relief, variation, a special use permit, a PUD? What do these processes look like? So we go through the community, and how are we going to get to a code that looks this graphic, that is this easy to use and responsive? Well, a lot of it is leveraging this new technology that we're really leveraging across the country and availing this to every community we work in to help educate people, engage people, and visualize in real time what zoning means to people. So we do an interactive project website with online questionnaires so we can engage people visually and narratively throughout the entire process. We have a thing called Map Social. People can access it on their smartphone, on a tablet, on a computer. They can drive around Ferguson or walk around town. They can take pictures with their phone, what they like, what they don't like. They can type in a comment or a little text, and they can actually drop those points down on a map of Ferguson. This is Fort Dodge, Iowa, where we can engage thousands of people as they live and experience their community on their phone. This all gets mapped on the city's GIS database, and we can query it by what people like and what they don't like. And we can even do hotspot analysis to find out where the problem areas are or the area's opportunity within Ferguson, driven solely by the residents and business owners as they experience Ferguson on a day-to-day basis. We can also do things like 3D visualization in open houses and workshops with the community and the elected and appointed officials. If we do zoning ordinance on a lot that says this is a commercial or residential property, here's the building area, here's the setback requirements. This yellow area is how big the setback volume would be for a new residential subdivision or an infill development. Here's what a house could look like based on our new zoning ordinance for this property. But not just for one property, we can do it for an entire neighborhood. And we can show what zoning looks like volumetrically in any neighborhood, changing any zoning parameter, lot coverage, height, setback, FAR. In real time, we can test what this means to new development and neighborhood investment, showing exactly what the neighborhood would look like over time based on new zoning regulations to make sure commercial areas, industrial areas, or residential is the character Ferguson wants and will accommodate the investment you need going forward in your different areas. Sign codes is another tricky one. Sign codes have to be regulated, often by size, 5% of building area, 10% of building area, 30% of building area. Those percentages don't mean anything to typical residents or to business owners. So we drive these visually. And this is one that we did in Bloomington. Do you like choice 1, choice 2, or choice 3? Overwhelmingly in the downtown, people said we like choice one. That's a 5% building side coverage for on-building signage in the historic downtown. So we use these sorts of techniques, engaging residents and business owners, so they're actually helping to drive a responsive ordinance that regulates the aesthetics of a community based off of resident and business feedback. We then take these and create these informational brochures and online documents and collateral to educate people and to let them know what we're doing, why we're doing, what it is the residents wanted to see, and how that helped drive the regulations that we put forth. The scope of work that we propose is this 6-step process. Kick off the project with city staff, elected and appointed officials, to begin to engage residents and business owners through various in-person and online and social media engagement, to do a detailed diagnostic and preliminary recommendations, to draft sections of the code, the final code, and then go through the implementation process. Throughout all of this, these are just some of the ways we intend to engage the residents of Ferguson. Through tours of the special areas, the downtown, your corridors, your key neighborhoods, to do roundtable discussions where we roll up our sleeves and sit down with city council, with department heads. The zoning has to work for public works, for police, fire, and planning and zoning. We have to meet with all of these groups to design collateral and educational materials that can be either hard copy, posters, postcards, or email blasts or social media, interactive website, map social, online questionnaires and surveys, interviews with groups and one-on-one individuals, plan commission workshop, and public open houses. These are just some of the ways we have proposed to engage, build excitement for it, and education of the zoning process. So again, that was a lot very quickly. I understand we only had a few minutes. When it comes to zoning experience, our experience is hard to beat, both nationally and within the region. We approach zoning and planning in a level of creativity that other firms are just not matching nationally. And it's beginning to really give us a lot of reverberation across the country as we set the bar for how zoning is being done in an age where things have to be more clear, more visual, more graphic, and like your iPhone, intuitive. You just sort of know how to use it. We are committed to this type of work. We're not an architecture firm that says we do zoning. We're not an engineering firm that says we do zoning. We're not a small shop that does zoning every once in a while. Jackie and I do zoning across the country and across the Midwest for municipalities. And a large part of that practice specifically is on the tails of a comprehensive plan, so we can start putting in place the recommendations and the ordinance so the city can achieve what the plan set out to achieve as its goals and aspirations. Again, specifically being responsive to the residents and businesses of Ferguson. And we're focused on implementation. We will drive the zoning ordinance, sign code, and subdivision regulations that will allow you to actually implement the plan's recommendations. And with that, I turn it back over to you for any Q&A, and thank you very much for your time.
All right, thank you so much. Council, does anyone have any questions?
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead, Ms. Lipka.
So I didn't hear a price.
The price was in our proposal. I believe it was. Let me pull it up. Jackie, do you have that handy? I believe, and I'll pull it up. We were told that you had our proposal in front of you, so I didn't want to sort of duplicate anything that was in our proposal. I believe our proposal was $139,730. Let me double check to make sure that's correct.
And we did have several conversations with Elliot as well to bring that price down, to
Right.
how to do some scope changes as well. So we are flexible in that price and responsive to the city's needs.
Right. I think in the preliminary contract that was put together was 129, but I think we spoke with Elliot about finding ways to lower that still.
Elliot?
That is correct.
Okay.
I'm sorry, let me make sure I'm visible here.
Did anyone else have any other questions?
Well, Fran, I don't care if it's in the proposal or not. Honestly, I want to hear them say it during this meeting. Can you please also tell us what that includes? What are the accessory items that come along with it, so to speak? Because the people who are listening don't have the proposal in front of them. So I
Okay.
want these questions answered for them.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So the the scope, and again, Elliot, correct me if I'm speaking correctly, but the last time, I think the last number we got was 129,650. 129,650. That included everything I just reviewed with me in the presentation. So it's a 6-step process. That was the scope of work I just went over, but it includes all the outreach that I just talked about, kickoff meetings, neighborhood, corridor, and district tours, department head meetings with the different departments, elected and appointed official roundtable workshops where we can sit around, roll up our sleeves, and just talk about these issues before we get even into the assignment. Preparing educational collateral electronically and hard copy for the community, an interactive project website, map.social, sort of the phone app that we have for people to engage sort of as they experience Ferguson on their terms. They can provide feedback in real time. Online community questionnaires through the website and through the phone. Key person and small group interviews, up to 12 of those. Small group and key person outreach efforts. We then move into where we do a detailed assessment of the code, including zoning, subdivision, and sign code. We assess and do an inventory of all your recent development proposals so we can get a good idea as to who's proposing what type of development and the approvals or denials the city was issuing based off of those proposals. We also will do a deep dive and look at the history of all your special uses, your rezonings, and your variances that have been applied for and either denied and or approved. We do a comprehensive plan alignment assessment. We look at the recommendations of your recent comprehensive plan, and we try to go through the entire document and say what of these actions can actually be achieved or aided through a zoning approach. And so we do a deep diagnostic and alignment with your comprehensive plan. We test all the regulations. We research national best practices in the industry. We do a detailed diagnostic of your zoning ordinance. We then have a meeting with staff, and we do another plan commission workshop where we can invite city council as well and other stakeholders and residents to go through our findings of what's working well, what's not working well, and what is or is not aligning with your comprehensive plan objectives. We then, should I just keep going through all the steps?
No, I understand where you're getting to, but
Okay.
what kind of, be very honest with you, sir, your program sounds beautiful. I think you're way out of our price range. I think your scope is way out of what we need. And according to the notes that I have seen, you had a proposed timeline of 18 months. I just feel like we've done so much of this. We are town halling and small grouping and surveying our citizens to death. I think that at some point, if we're going to hire a zoning company, we need to hire somebody that can come in, make one presentation, tell us why you think you're the experts, tell us why you think this is the expert decision, and be done with it. We have overkill in this area of all these meetings and all these things. Of course, I want citizens to have input, but to the extent that we're nitpicking and turning every decision into a photographic coloring book for people to choose, do you like A, do you like B, do you like C? I think we're making this too much. Just give us an idea, give us your expertise opinion, and let's have a couple meetings where people can have their input, and let's move forward. I think this sounds like a very long, drawn out process that's very expensive, and our citizens, we are a very tight budget community, and we have situations coming before us where there's proposals that are being kicked around that the citizens are going to have a lot to say about that. And if we're as tight budgeted as we say we are, then we've got to be smarter in this. I mean, if you wanted to make a proposal that was half of what you just did, I'd be willing to listen to it. But at 129,000, 130,000, I think it's way out of our price range.
Well, the timeline, without getting into negotiations with the city, we've done zoning in 4 to 6 months, depending on the process the city wants. So we've also done it in 24 or more months. So we say we move at the pace the city is comfortable moving. So that's not as much of an issue for us as it is for the city stating this is the sort of the process duration and cadence you're comfortable with. And in terms of the price, it was pretty clear through the process to us that there was a real desire to engage pretty robustly the residents and the business community. So that's what we put forth. We've also done zoning where they said, hey, listen, give us 1 or 2 meetings and let's get at it. We've done zoning like that as well. So our response was put together based off our response and our reading of the RFP. If you wanted a more streamed down process or one that was less encumbered by outreach or back and forth engagement, we've done that as well for communities that said, we just want to hit the ground running, very matter of fact. Here's our budget. We've got 6 months. We've done those as well. So we've done zoning that's 3 times as expensive as we're proposing for you. We've done zoning that's half as much as we're proposing in this one. But sometimes we don't know that till we start negotiating with the city because we're responding to an RFP without the benefit of dialogue. So so responding to what you've just said, if that's the desire of the city, we've done those. So again, we have to take our lead by what the city's direction is. And your story about burnout, that's a real thing. Outreach burnout is a real thing. We try to be mindful of that, but we don't know to what extent it exists in a city till the city tells us we're done with this. So to your point, if we're lucky enough to be selected because you like our ability, and I would even say, even if we streamline this in terms of process, you would still get our full creative everything. We're not going to whittle back on the quality or the creativity of what we're producing. So know that that's just how we approach zoning. So.
Well, and I appreciate your response to my concerns because you just made me feel a whole lot better. I think quite honestly, you know, our citizens put a lot of committed time into the 2040 comprehensive plan. And that was over almost a little over a year of meetings and everything else. And so, you know, they've made their voices heard in this plan that we've developed. And then as well, that being said, I really feel like there's so much information in the 2040 plan that's already there for you, kind of gives you a very clear direction. And then on top of that, we've got the West Florissant corridor and all of the zoning that's been designed there. And we had a lot of citizen input there. We've got the Greenway, Councilwoman Griffin, help me out. What is the program?
Gateway Greenway. I was just
Yeah.
gonna say, I'm just for sake of making sure that we stand on track, because you know we start at 7 o'clock and we
Gotcha.
got this other firm. If you've got some more questions, please definitely ask. And if the council, if there's anybody else that has a question for the firm, that would be helpful so we can move on to the next one. I definitely want to make sure everybody's questions are answered.
Well, and that being said, I will close my thoughts and comments, but I do appreciate you, sir, for your response. And I will say that we've got a lot of great information that has already been created through our citizens that you're welcome to use that would streamline this.
That's great.
Any more questions? Anybody else? Okay, I'm gonna give it back to Mr. Osterberg. Well, thank you, Mr.
Hey, thanks for
Hausel,
having
for
us. I know it's,
presenting. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
We
thank you for
appreciate
your time, Mr. Hausel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Elliot, do we have the,
Yes, we do.
okay, all right.
Sorry, I was on it. Anyway, yes. Oh, are you, so, sorry for the delay. The next presentation is from H3 Studios. We have John Hole, who is the principal, Timothy Bryhan, and I believe Julie Pancoast as well. John, have I missed anyone?
No, that's all good. Thank you, Elliot, and good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Should we move ahead? Are you ready? Well, good evening, everyone. I'm John Hole. I'm founding principal of H3 Studio. And as Elliot mentioned, we have Tim and Julia with us. We're going to share the presentation and we can get going. But I greatly appreciate you taking the time to interview us. I know these decisions, having sat on the other side of the table, are always difficult decisions. So, Chris, did you raise a question?
Yeah, who would you like to share the presentation? Who's sharing the screen? I have to give them access.
Tim.
Yes, I'll be doing that. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, you should be able to share this presentation now.
Okay.
So as I was saying, I know these decisions are always difficult decisions between consultant firms, but we thank you very much for interviewing us, and we've prepared a presentation based upon the understanding that you have our proposal, so you know the general what's technically in that. But next, wanted to introduce just very briefly the firm. We a planning and design firm. We located in the Central West End in the city of St. Louis. We are 15 minutes away from your city. We know your city well. Friends of ours did your comprehensive plan, RISE, and we were watched alongside. We have previously, a number of years ago, worked on the Greenway with TrailNet and biking plans in your community. We are an urban design and planning firm, and we do zoning and land use and form-based codes. We have worked extensively throughout the Midwest on these, and I'll touch bases with them next. And the team that's going to be working with you on this will be myself as project director. And in that role, I'll be providing the overall direction and the general guidance on the project. And as a professional facilitator, I will certainly be facilitating the larger group meetings. As I say, I've also worked on within public agencies. I was director of urban design for the city of St. Louis for 10 years. So I understand the critical importance of comprehensive plans and codes and the implications of having to implement redevelopment based upon the code. So I bring a great deal of experience from both sides on that. And Tim, introduce yourself.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tim Bryan. I'm also a principal with H3 Studio. I will be serving as the project manager if we are lucky enough to be selected. And so in that role, I will be the day-to-day single point of contact for the team and will administer the overall work plan and production of all deliverables.
Hi, I'm Julia Pancoast, and I'm a senior planner and urban designer with H3. Been with H3 about 6 years now, and do a lot of the kind of the technical work on creating the deliverables, as well as working in with the community and all the stakeholder groups and things like that through the process.
Next, Tim. So, just to reinforce some of our local experience here, just as a sort of note of order, we were the firm that the city of St. Louis employed to create their very first form-based code and the entire form-based code for the city. So we've done extensive form-based code work and hybrid codes and land use codes, and this just gives you a example of the range of work. And as I say, we work basically throughout the Midwest. We're currently working with the city of Bentonville in Arkansas and Springdale on their codes, as well as at the moment with the city of St. Louis on the Dalmar Loop and neighborhood code at that place. So this is part and parcel of our everyday work, and we bring years of experience together with that. I want to emphasize that all of our code work, next to is based in a community engagement and outreach process. Now, this gets tailored through the contract negotiations, but I can give you a kind of a sense of the range of options that we use. We understand that codes are difficult things for communities to understand. So we spend a lot of time generally with both the staff as well as representatives of the community to ensure that the final product really works. The other side of it is we speak with developers and redevelopers within your community to foster those codes. So we bring a great range of expertise. Now, this all gets honed through the understanding of your community. And in preparation of submittal, I know Julia has really spent a lot of time analyzing your existing plans and comprehensive plan. So Julia.
Yeah, if you want to advance to the next slide, Tim. So kind of within the RFP and the objectives you all outlined, and then looking at all the plans the city has done recently, obviously the major one being the Ferguson 2040 comprehensive plan, and looking into the various form-based codes and overlay districts you already have in place. There was a lot to digest and synthesize there as kind of a backdrop to how we would approach the project. And there's a lot of things to be considered there. So how we see the objective that you all want to get out of this project is a user-friendly code that is concise, consistent, and aligns with your plans, and really creating a development friendly, promoting the type of development in your community that's going to achieve those visions and goals set out in all of the plans that you have, the adopted plans that you already have in place. So obviously updating the zoning code is really important to implementing those visions, because it's a key tool that the city has to implement on a lot by lot basis. So it's powerful. And yeah, so these are the series of plans that we looked at and kind of immersed ourselves in to really understand everything that would be going into this project. We also have worked in your community before on the bicycle and pedestrian plan back in 2011 or 2012, I believe. So if you go to the next slide, we actually started physically mapping kind of what the comprehensive plan, what the aspirations, vision, and goals were of the comprehensive plan, and how that translated to the physical layout of the city. And we had a really detailed buildup of this map that broke it down into more granular, that we presented to the selection committee in the first round of interviews. But here's kind of the synopsis of the different areas and aspects that the code will need to address. And so anyways, this is all a very important backdrop of how we understand your community and the different aspects that are going to go into it. And we'll be able to fold this information in and get a running start on all of this project if we're selected. So if you want to advance to the next slide, Tim. So, and again, right up front, part of the initial phase of contract negotiations is identifying the engagement and the key stakeholders that works for your community. And so here we've just outlined preliminarily who we believe some of the groups would be that would be important to target and bring into the process. And another thing to note is as the kind of scope of the code evolves through speaking with you all, there might be certain areas that are going to expect that the code changes are going to impact them more. So then we'd want to target those areas and bring them in as kind of focus groups and things like that. So there's a lot to be worked out in the fine details of the engagement, but we've kind of outlined what we think is a good working model. And we've added kind of optionally this idea of an advisory committee, because we found it in the Del Mar code that we're working on right now to be a really powerful tool when you get into some of the if certain groups aren't aligning on a decision making about a certain area, having that advisory committee in place to work through any conflicts has shown, we found it to be really helpful.
And just to emphasize that,
Ironing
just to go back to just to emphasize the potential of the advisory committee. And again, we know that you spent a lot of time developing your comprehensive plan, and it's very detailed. And one of the nice things you could think of in terms of advisory committee is bring people up who participated in that, who are interested in the code, and that ensures the continued synthesis in your community between what you were developing in your comprehensive plan and how that translates into the code. And There's some people in your community that will be passionate about understanding the codes, and others will sort of leave it to them. So this is one mechanism that you can use to do that. So it's a very successful option for you to consider.
And then just lastly, I wanted to kind of outline, because upfront in our scope is about creating that detailed outreach and engagement plan. And these are the series of ways that you can begin to think of how you target and engage the different groups. So you have kind of the focus groups and the work sessions with different groups, the public workshops and the open houses, and community events at different scales, whether it's a neighborhood scale event or a citywide event. And then in the age of 2020, 2021 COVID, how we pivoted, online is really important. So how we can leverage existing online sources to put information out to educate people on the process and allow people that easy way to keep on top of what is going on with the process, and an easy way to weigh in is important. And hybrid engagement models, if those are applicable to your community, we've done that a lot in the last few years. And as well as if there's any concerns over the digital divide in your community. We've worked in several communities in the last couple of years where online was not really doable. So we always had to do hybrid, where there was a parallel in-person meeting happening with a webinar style meeting. And so anyways, these are details that we can work out with whatever is going to work best with your community, and then briefing throughout the process, keeping all of the elected officials and appointed officials briefed on the outcomes. So, and I will, with that, I think Tim is going to walk you through kind of working with your community and what that looks like.
Thanks, Julia. So we understand, looking at the scope for the project, and we certainly appreciate all of the planning efforts that the community has participated in over the last several years with the development of the comp plan. But we also understand that it's very important that the city zoning ordinances have to be fully integrated with the comp plan to serve effectively as that tool for comp plan implementation. And so we look at this from the standpoint not only of integration of the plans, as Julia was mentioning, but also working with the community to really identify a character and place-based framework for revitalization over time, as well as always keeping in mind the need to position the city for success moving forward. And so as we look at your existing plans, and we look at the charge for the zoning and subdivision and sign code updates, it's important for us to think about how we take the strategies that are outlined in the comprehensive plan and really first start by translating those into a vision for community development potential that resonates with the community and that is driven by community residents. Then taking that community development potential and visualizing what the actual physical character and physical outcomes of that potential is. Because again, as John mentioned, and as I'm sure you all are well aware, this is something that many citizens, everyday citizens, are not intimately familiar with. So being very clear about what is the character, what does this look like, and then once that vision has been established, then developing the code updates that will achieve that desired physical character. And of course, this whole process is underpinned by the opportunities for public engagement, which we would work to tailor with you and with the specific requirements of the community. So beginning with translating those strategies, we would really see the focus of the community engagement portion of this beginning to prioritize the existing comp plan strategies that deal with physical community development within Ferguson, and working with citizens and stakeholders to identify the geographic locations where these can be most effectively deployed to either address current issues or take advantage of current opportunities. And through that process, that'll allow us to begin to understand the community's ideas and desires about what these strategies can accomplish. And it will help to set up our technical work with the city.
Tim, I just wanted to give you a time notice. We're running up against time. We have 6 minutes before our council meeting. So I want to just make sure there's time for council to ask you questions.
Yeah, all right, thank you. So that'll set up the analysis process with the city looking at all of these various opportunity areas throughout Ferguson. Then visualizing this is probably one of the most important parts of the process because this is where we get to really work to educate the community on the impact and implications of the code, as well as to begin to illustrate what those implications and impacts are as a tool to define the community's vision. And we do this through a variety of ways, but it's all very highly illustrative, graphics-based, and we really like to use these, again, not only as an educational tool, but also as a decision-making tool to begin to show people what the particular physical characteristics are and use that as a way to solicit meaningful feedback from residents. And then finally, using that community developed vision for the physical character, we can then reconfirm the community's vision and then begin to draft those code updates, working in detail with the city to write a code that's user-friendly, accessible, and is actually very useful to people of all levels of expertise. And you know, this is an example of how we like to think of these codes, where it's a very simple format, a few pages. It tells a developer or a property owner exactly what they need to know about the code on their property, and it's done in a very graphically understandable format that's very clear. And so this overall process, as we outlined it in our proposal, is approximately an 8-month process. Certainly, again, we will work with the city if we are lucky to be selected to refine that scope in order to meet your expectations and needs. And with that, I would like to pass it back to John for final remarks and Q&A.
Sorry, I just wanted to emphasize a couple of things. The way we approach these projects is we sort of feel that we become partners with you and long-term partners with you. So we don't only produce the code. Our office is 15 minutes away from you. There are always questions post the code. We have long-standing relationships with cities that we continue to come back and assist and educate staff and run training in terms of code. So our sense is that if we are chosen, we really become partners with you on the transformation. We go back and amend codes as necessary. We've had tremendous experience. We're working in Florissant at the moment on their comprehensive plan together with some of their code changes. So we know your community, we located right here, and we can be in your offices in 15 minutes to have the discussions that need be. You will find us completely committed to you. This is very important work that we do, and we really truly look as our sense as we become part of your team to achieve your vision. So we thank you for interviewing us. And we're ready to start whenever you are.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Is there any questions from the council?
So Councilwoman Griffin, I do feel like I should ask the same question of this company that I asked of the other one. So I know it's in your proposal, but could you please tell all of us who are listening your cost for this, your work?
57,000 is approximately. Do you want to state the exact figure if you have it, Julia or Tim?
I think it was either 57,800 or 57,200, but I don't have it right in front of me. But that was our kind of core scope that we wrote into our proposal, and then we had listed a few optional things that the city could consider that would be above that. So there'd be some other options to consider.
Basically, everything we described for you tonight is let's just call it 57,000.
So
maximum 8 month process. And it depends on how extensive the city would like community engagement. And again, we know your city, we know how much work you put into your comp plan. So we're very sensitive to sort of over meeting, and we always are concerned about things like that.
So, sir, Mr. Hole, is that how I say your last name?
Yes, ma'am.
So looking at the proposed budget, I'm showing $57,280. And then it
Yep.
says optional adoption services of $6,055. So if we added that on, we would be looking at $63,335. Now there's a project management and administration cost of $1,750. Is that in that? That's in that 57, correct?
Yes, and let me clear what the adoption process is. The 57 delivers you the document ready for your city adoption process. If you wished us to, and many cities do it themselves, take it through their own adoption process, led by their own planners. Other cities like the consultant to do that for them. So that's why we just left it as unsure which way you want to go, but you will have at the end of the project a fully comprehensive zoning code ready for adoption.
And then when you say reimbursable expenses, can you explain that? Because I show that at 3,000.
That's for instance, if you wanted copies, physical copies of the documents, as opposed to electronic submissions.
Or if there's other printing of plottable boards and things throughout the process. So that's billed as it's used, but not anything above that amount.
Julia, I have one question.
Linda, can I ask a question real quick? This is Tony Barrow. Linda, is that okay? On Julia, I got a question. With all the options that you have proposed that we are able to adopt if we wish, am I thinking correctly when I say that from womb to tomb, this is going to be less than 70,000? Is that correct?
Yes, you said
Thank
70,000. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, for sure.
That was my question. Thank you.
Julia, the one thing I want to touch on before we go to our council meeting, you had talked about an advisory committee, pulling that together. I think it was you. So like an advisory committee, for instance, if you're working with Florissant right now, then you guys are working with Art Lum. But Art Lum is actually a resident of Ferguson. So when I hear advisory committee, I'm also hearing basically pulling together a task force that actually gets something done in Ferguson of citizens who have expertise in this area that could actually give input. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes, and Tim's working with an advisory committee structure right now, and and obviously John has as well, and they could speak to the benefits of how that plays out.
Let me just sort of reinforce that. Yes, you bring in the expertise within your community and people who find this incredibly interesting stuff. Some people don't. Some people, don't go to bed reading a zoning code. Unfortunately, I do. It's just like there's a sort of a difference in this. But you try and people. And the other thing you do in an advisory committee, you make sure there's enough diversity in the sense of people living geographically in your community, so that they all come together and everyone understands why this happens there and why it happens differently here, etc. So, the geographic distribution of the members is very important. Some are from the residential, from downtown. And so we would spend some time during contract negotiations with you. So there's no additional cost to all of that. Working out who those best partners are to have in the room. You know your community, and we'll structure that. We find that type of work really, really engaging, and people are interested in it. And then they take that input back to their community. And that's the other side of the role of the advisory community. They will go to their neighborhood meeting and say, this is what's happening. This is what's relevant to us, etc. So we see a strong option for you in that. But again, subject to, discussion with you all.
Thank you. Fran, I'm done.
Alright. Okay, all right. Well, I mean, really quickly, is there anybody else that had any other questions, any other council?
I just want to thank everybody for speaking. Thank you for your input, and I appreciate your just putting it out there before us. Thank you. I'm glad we had the opportunity to hear it.
As well, thank you.
All right, yes, thank you so
you.
much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
All right.
Bye.
Okay, so it looks like now we're gonna go ahead and adjourn. Can I get a request? Elliot, really quickly, was there anything pressing, anything concerning that you needed to inform council about before we adjourn?
Only to emphasize to the council that whoever you choose, we're going to work with and make sure that this is the very best plan that zoning code that it can possibly be. That's it.
Okay. Mr. Osterberg?
No further comments from me.
All right, can I get a motion and a second to adjourn this meeting?
So
Tony Burrows
moved.
moved.
I got like 4. Okay.
I've got Tony, Councilwoman Burrows for the motion, and I didn't hear the second.
Laquita Noah second.
Miss Noah, second the motion. Can we take a vote? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Meeting adjourned.